it speaks so strongly to people's commitment and passion for working together to meet and alleviate as much needs as possible during this unparalleled time in addressing the pandemic COVID-19. Gonna try to well, let me go over the agenda real quick. And again, we'll be utilizing the chat box for questions. Please, feel free to use that. The chat box, in addition to questions though, so one of the things that happened last week was it was just a great forum for connection. So consider that chat box for the time being kind of a virtual table. It is not the same as us all being gathered. We miss that human connection right now, but it really was a great tool where people were connecting and it led to things happening outside the meeting. So, feel free to use it. There's messages to all, private message, however you want to make it work. So today's meeting, just want to go over the agenda. It's we want to give a quick recap of what we discussed last week, as well as provide some resources that you can access so you can stay in the loop even if you missed the last week's. As we said, we're recording these sessions. We are putting them on YouTube, and we'll have them accessible elsewhere. We're going to have a few key updates, and I'm going to talk right before the updates on how we're going to be managing updates in these meetings going forward. But the bulk of the meeting is really about making sure we're kind of clear on the action steps that we need to take next to really mobilize all of the people on this line towards, I won't say just action for more action. I want to uplift that the purpose of this is to really build off of all the amazing work happening right now. It has been inspiring to see people just sacrificing so much of their time and even in some cases to the degree their own safety to make sure people's needs are being met. And so, as we talk about what the COAD is about, I would just want to reinforce that this isn't about creating new. It's about lifting up what exists, creating stronger connections, and really connections and relationships that allow us to endure and overcome this over the long haul. So that is kind of a straightforward agenda. My goal is to try to keep us to an hour and get everyone back to where they need to be. So without further ado, we're going to dive in. Again, chat box is a space for questions, as well as the email address eastsidealigned@gmail.com. So as a quick refresher, this meeting, this convening is focused on forming a COAD, Community Organizations Active in Disaster. We are hoping to create a forum that increases the communication and coordination among all of you on this line and the respective organizations you represent. And we want to just increase our strength again to recover and respond to this pandemic, to meet people's needs now and alleviate any further suffering that could happen, and ultimately move us towards a pace of resiliency and rebuilding, and toward our overarching goal of moving towards thriving. I'm not going to dive too much deeper in the nuts and bolts of COADs. We are going to have those resources available, but just again, hitting home that this is a space for us to make the connections that we may not already have, leveraging the strengths and resources that have shown themselves boldly over the last few weeks. So just if anyone who is new, here's the quick 101 on a COAD. This is there are COADs that exist all throughout the nation, and we have several of them just across the river in the St. Louis area. I believe some of those folks who are involved are on this call today and are helping guide us in how this works and how we can best mobilize our resources that are in this footprint, as well as leverage resources across the region. And I want to acknowledge that this is a source for information. It's not the only space where information is being disseminated. And I want to lift up that there are several daily and weekly briefings that a lot of the folks on this line are either always giving updates to or being pulled on to listen. So these are a few of them. The mayor of East St. Louis has a briefing every Monday at 11 on the City of East St. Louis Facebook page. St. Clair County has a daily briefing at 3:30 on the St. Clair County Emergency Management Facebook page. Many of you may already know that the Illinois governor typically has a daily briefing at 3:30 on their Facebook page. It also gets picked up by many news outlets. Again, so I say it to say is there are many spaces to be gathering information. We are going to, hopefully following this meeting, really be activating a set of teams that we're going to be getting into. And so a bulk of the work from here will be happening in those respective teams that, again, we'll talk about. We still find it's important to have at least a weekly, maybe at some point move to bi-weekly check-in where we bring everyone together. And what we will be providing in that come-all checking is critical updates that we feel are cross-cutting for all of the teams to be aware of and just for people to be aware of. And as it is needed, allow this space to have deeper dives on either particular issues that just we need to just have the clarity that folks might benefit from, and or particular issues that could benefit from deeper strategizing and input from people. So want to just be clear on, like, you know, what to expect with general COAD briefing. We are going to stick to the, for now, Tuesday at 10 o'clock time. You should have that invite already in your calendar for next week, but I'm going to extend it just so we have it. And we want to maintain a level of flexibility. If this time doesn't work, we can shift. But so far, with 79 people on the call, it seems like we're doing okay. Couple links on the screen for those who can see it and those on the phone. I've created a Google folder for you to access meeting minutes as well as other resources that we go over from this meeting. For those on the phone, you can access this. We created what's called a tiny URL. So tinyurl.com/COAD-files. Again, that is tinyurl.com/COAD-files. That is, and we're going to email this out. So if you've been getting our emails, you'll get this link later. That is a space where you can get meeting minutes, slides, as well as other resources pertaining to the COAD. This is where we're going to be having our teams save their information as well. So we want to give you the real-time resource to go back to at any time. The other thing that was sent out last week was, and this is something, again, you're going to hear me say several times today, is we need you to complete a brief survey form. You can access this survey form at another tiny URL. That is tinyurl.com/COAD2020. Again, COAD is spelled COAD. So again, tinyurl.com/COAD2020. This is something that is the call to action for today. Please complete this if you haven't already. This is going to help us in scheduling the action-oriented teams that is going to move us towards greater coordination. So if you don't get anything else from this call, please complete the survey. But I think you hopefully will get more. So again, you're going to see that link appear other times during the day. It's primarily to access, or rather to help us place people on the different teams. We also have 2 questions that's looking to just get a real-time check-in on needs, both needs you are hearing from residents, as well as needs that you and challenges you are experiencing within your respective organizations and institutions. We are trying to capture that information so we can strategize around it for our own working, but also to elevate those concerns to regional groups who are asking us, what is the needs in your community? And so we want to be as real time as possible. So I know I went a little fast because I wanted to leave time primarily for the updates and us moving us towards action, but the takeaways are we're trying to make information as accessible as possible. about the COAD, and we need your help in getting us organized to go forward. So I mentioned that we will have updates in our COADs, and we're prioritizing the updates that we feel are as much need to know at this time. Also acknowledging that our the needs are changing daily, right? So I foresee us, if she is available, having Liz, Pat, and Whiteside giving an update per week, because the cases are changing day to day. The conditions are changing day to day. So some of these may be more standing than others, but these are things that we wanted to ensure we lifted up today, both in general and in follow-up to last week. And then speaking of following up in last week, you'll see that the first speaker we have for today is Miss Remy Hare. She is one of several young people who have been joining our calls both last week and this week. And we, for those who joined us last week, you may have seen there were a few different questions that the young people posed about what's our role within disaster response. And, you know, it was a question posed to the group, but really we felt that question should go backwards to the young people to hear from them on what their thoughts and ideas were. And in some of the conversations I've had with young people, and just to give context for those who may not be as familiar, Eastside Aligned centers its work in youth voice and leadership. And so by us starting today with having space and a platform for youth to speak, I want to be very clear that this isn't a checkbox. And I'm asking everyone to sincerely listen and hear to what Remy has to say, because I believe in this work that we're doing, all of our coordination, all of our efforts, Remy and the other young people are going to be our compass. They're the ones who are going to be able to guide us on where the needs are. They're going to be the ones who tell us what they're experiencing, as well as, you know, not just themselves as young people, but their families and across in their community. So I am very grateful for Remy's willingness to share. I'm grateful for the advocacy of other young people who have been on these calls as well. And so I am going to figure out how to unmute her real quick. And the next voice you're going to hear is Remy. So just give me 1 second to control this thing. All right, Remy, you should be unmuted and able to share out.
All right, good morning, everyone. As you know, my name is Remy. I'm part of the Love Hub, which is Leading Our Voices Everywhere. And what we do, we try to provide resources for youth to enhance and develop their leadership skills and become better leaders, not only in the community, but when they go off to become adults. So my experience personally with the coronavirus, it's definitely been a difficult shift. As I am youth, I'm in school and I am a college student. So it's kind of hard to make that change. There are a lot of things that are different and a lot of things that I have to adjust to, like willingness and doing things on my own, but I'm not really worried about it. And some of the needs that I have for the community would definitely be like, I just need people to stay at home so we can get this over with. But I actually do have a lot of concerns. And one of those major concerns is the youth. Given that we can't go back to school, I feel like it'll drastically affect the learning curve. A lot of students aren't going to do work, and I also was told by like a few of the students that the teachers weren't allowed to give them a failing grade. So they feel like there is no purpose for doing it, and a lot of people aren't going to do it at home. So that just kind of sucks to know how that's going to change. And then also, like the adults, even though there's nothing we can do right now, there are a lot of people out of work. And because of that, it affects not only them, but their families as well. And every family is going through something different. But you know, it just kind of depends. And it's kind of hard for some more than others. And then another concern I have with the coronavirus itself, I feel like it'll be just like the flu. It'll be a seasonal thing. It'll come around this time of year. Every year, it just won't be as worse. But there are a lot of things on hold. So that's kind of difficult. And as far as my group, we were actually going through a pretty nice stage to where not necessarily this was convenient, but sorry, it didn't hold us back too much because we still can meet through like via Zoom and stuff like that. So it's okay. And yeah, but if you guys have any more questions, you can just ask me in the chat box, or you can get in contact with me after the meeting.
Thank you, Remy. And just if it got a little choppy at the end, she said that if there are questions, you can place them in the chat box. She'll respond through that mechanism. And Remy, I just would ask one other thing. Just as I know you've answered it a little bit, but in terms of how you see, your role and other young people's role within either the COAD space or response work in general, what is some of your hopes and/or ideas?
Okay, I would definitely say to provide perspective. I feel like as youth, we're not necessarily shut out, but we aren't heard as much. So having that youth involved in each different part of the COAD, I think it'll help really address all of the needs, if that like kind of makes sense, because I feel like there are some things that go unnoticed or unnamed, or there are some things that just are on the down low and I feel like they shouldn't be. So as youth, I feel like we definitely provide that perspective as being a child and being just in the home going through this whole situation, because we don't really know how to handle situations like this. So I definitely think it just provides that perspective on what we need and what we can do.
Thank you, Remy. And, I know a number of folks on this line already. Your organizations work towards young people and you've been making calls to see how they're doing. Just I encourage that as you check in on them, also ask the question, what are their ideas? What are ways that they feel that they can be of service during this time? And again, not looking at it as a checkbox, but really as a compass to say, these are our marching orders. I think we'll go a lot farther in our work if we all do our part in lifting up those voices and following their lead. So thank you, Remy, so much. Next, we're going to move on to Miss Liz Patton-Whiteside. Let me get her off mute. I think she's off mute. There we go. So Liz,
Okay.
it's yours.
Good morning. Can you hear me?
Yep.
Okay. Well, things are really evolving on the public health front as far as the COVID-19 cases are concerned. Now, for those of you all who are new on the line, you know that Eastside Health District covers 4 townships out of St. Clair County, which is Stites, Canteen, Centerville, and East St. Louis, which is approximately 60,000 individuals out of St. Clair County. So the numbers I'm going to give you first are the numbers that affect my jurisdiction of Eastside Health District. My numbers are incorporated also into the total numbers from St. Clair County. So as of this morning at 8:30 a.m., we have done 55 tests. Of those 55 tests, 26 was negative, 24 was positive, 5 are still pending, and we did have 1 death yet that was reported Sunday. For St. Clair County in total, there have been 615 tested, 86 positive, 389 negative. We still have 140 pending cases and 4 deaths. Now, there's a lot of confusion out now because the governor, the president, and everyone else are saying wear masks. And at first we were saying do not wear masks. There's parameters around it. We want people to wear masks when they're out doing their essential shopping at their essential places or going out to medical offices or anytime you're outside of your home and you're going to be in a group setting. If you're in your home, though, you do not need to wear a mask, okay? Just when you're around someone else. And there's a long guideline on that on the IDPH website that just came out yesterday, if anyone wants to read it. And I will put a synopsis of it on our Eastside Health District website so that you don't have to read the whole thing. Also, what should be of great interest to our community is there's an impact of the COVID-19 on the Black community's Zoom this afternoon. It's from 4 to 5:30 p.m. That information is in your chat box. It was put there by Marilyn Green. There we go. And I would ask everybody to please join that to hear what is happening with the Black communities, because the number of cases of the COVID-19 cases are predominantly in the Black, predominantly affecting African-American citizens, and it's disproportionate. So we need to hear what they have to say in the town hall meeting, and then you will have a chance in order to put your input in that meeting. I know that I've been briefed this morning, but I'm open for questions once they come up. Evan?
Thank you, Liz. Again, please utilize the chat box for questions. For the sake of time, we may get to some now, or we will get them out through a FAQ document in that Google folder. But thank you, Liz, for the update. And as you see on the screen, there is the Zoom meeting that's tonight. For those joining on the phone, if you have Facebook and can go on Facebook, it's posted on the Representative Latoya Greenwood's Facebook page and many other spaces. It's floating around. It's today at 4 o'clock, and really would encourage folks to jump on. So next up, get back. We have Sydney Stiggy Kaufman from East St. Louis School District 189.
Hi, good morning, everyone. I wanted to provide an update on what the school district is doing and to answer questions that there may be, that others may be having. So many of you are already aware of the two major services that the school district is providing. First of all is education is continuing. And this week, our teachers are actually participating in online and remote learning and professional development. This is one of the recommendations by the Illinois State Board of Education. And so we are using the next several days for that. Students have been given homework and assignments to be working on while the teachers are going through their learning process. Information about how the education is continuing can be found on our school district website. So that's available at www.estl189.com. Many of you are also aware that we have distributed Chromebooks to our students. Previously, we had distributed these to first graders through 12th graders. And we've expanded that to kindergartners. So all kindergartners in the school district can also come and check out a Chromebook to be used for continuing education at home. So today through 2 p.m., if families have not picked up their Chromebook, either for their kindergartner or for any of the other students up through 12th grade, they are encouraged to come to their local school to check out the Chromebook. And that would need to, the student must be present as well as some adult. It doesn't have to be a parent, but it needs to be an adult accompanying that student. The second thing that the school district is providing is meals. We're providing these meals through grab and go student meals. That includes every day a breakfast and a lunch within the same bag. On Fridays, we are providing additional meals within those to try to sustain through the weekend as much as possible. The service is being provided from 10 a.m. until noon each day. This week is a unique week for a couple different factors. First of all, this Friday is a holiday that has been on our calendars for quite some time. And so we are providing a break to all of the staff that are involved with the meal service. So the meal delivery service will not operate this Friday, which is Good Friday. So Thursday, we will provide additional meals to those families. So encourage the families that you're in contact with that are dependent on these meals to make sure they get them on Thursday of this week to sustain them through the weekend. The way that we've been able to do these meals is we're really operating 27 school buses, and they're going to 9 of our school sites as well as 12 community centers. So we're very grateful to our partners that are allowing us to park these school buses in front of their facility so that community members can have faster access to the meals. In addition to that, we have 6 school buses that are on a roving basis, and they have a specific bus route that they are following. The details of that can also be found on our website. And so those roving buses are really meeting the student needs in areas where we do not have centers and we do not have schools located. Having said all that, we have been encountering a number of challenges, and that's really come to a head yesterday and this morning as well. In order to provide these services, we are reliant upon our school buses, which is Illinois Central. That's a contractor that our school district uses. It is not our specific staff, our school staff. So if they do not show up for work, if they do not report for work, we are at a disadvantage, and most specifically, our students are at a disadvantage. So that happened yesterday, and that has happened again this morning. We thought it had been resolved yesterday, but it's becoming a persistent problem. So I am once again reaching out to the community and to those on this Zoom call. We have 12 community center locations within East St. Louis, and we can even expand that number as well as necessary. What we need assistance with is a volunteer, and it doesn't have to be a group, it just needs to be one per site that's willing to be there from about 9 a.m. until 12:30. And if we can have a rotation created so they don't have to come 5 days a week, but we're asking for volunteers to support the effort so that we can know that there's a reliable person to restock the meals. We would have a delivery service drop off the meals, and we would need someone that can even remain at a distance from the table, but just to make sure that, you know, one person doesn't walk off with 40 bags of food, and that they periodically are spraying the table to keep it sanitized. I'm happy to email and provide more details about what these needs are. But again, we do not have, we are basing our program off of the assurance that the staff from a different entity will come each day, and they are not. And that's something that we cannot control. So we're asking for community support to help that initiative.
Thank you, Sydney. And there are going to be different mechanisms, hopefully, that we can recruit volunteers. And just for clarity, when we say volunteers, that could be just anyone as a volunteer, but also just thinking about your staffs, you yourselves. It's just we're looking for able bodies to support this. We wanted to report this out of both a current challenge and an upcoming challenge that we are going to be tossing to the one of our COAD teams, the mass care team, to really strategize around, and knowing that is one large piece of the overall food distribution equation. So for those who are interested and have already expressed interest using the survey form, know that there's going to be space and available to strategize directly on this as we go forward. Thank you, Sydney. Next, we're going to turn it to Deborah Moore from St. Clair County. As mentioned earlier, the chairman as well as the emergency management director, they have a daily briefing. So I've not asked Deborah to regurgitate what's shared there. But one of the things, again, to help inform the strategy of the COAD teams, one of the teams is around not just providing physical resource, but financial resource. And we know that there are going to be different financial resources that are coming through the various bills that were passed through the federal government. And so I've asked Deborah just to provide an update if the county has received any new information about the status of those funds and or eligibility and so forth, and anything else that she wanted to offer to the group. So Deborah, the floor is yours.
Okay. Thank you very much, Evan, and good morning to everyone, and thank you all so much for participating. St. Clair County is receiving revenue from both the state and federal government to respond to this pandemic. And those dollars will be funneled through our community services block grant programs, as well as our community development block grant programs. Now, the problem for us is there has not been a clear definition how those dollars can and should be spent. But we are not waiting for that. We are moving forward to put applications out. Some of you may have seen the application. If you have not, you can go to our website. It should be up today. And that website is www.co-st-clair.il.us. And you will find the application, if not today, probably tomorrow. And you can go ahead and submit an application. Unfortunately, we cannot give you specific parameters. I think Latasha Johnson is on the call as well today, and she can correct me if I'm wrong, but we are moving forward as if we're moving forward, let me just say that. And we do hope that we're able to dispense services to residents in need, the traditional services of energy assistance, weatherization, the social service component of community services block grant as well, rental assistance and those type of things will be available also. I will mention, some of you may have heard, some of you may not have heard, but real estate taxes are going out later. They're going out about a month later, and the due dates will be extended out to August 31st and then in September, in the interest of trying to benefit our citizens. And the penalties that are typically associated with late pay are being removed as well. We will be acting on that formally on the last Monday of the month in our regular county board meeting. I think that's probably as much other than questions you might have. And I'll try to respond now to a couple questions that I received last week, but I didn't have answers for. There was some equipment needs. I can only direct you to your emergency services responders. We don't have a stockpile of masks or sanitizer or any of that type equipment that is not being dispensed to public safety folks. I mean, our sheriff's department, we're sharing with police chiefs and fire chiefs, but we don't have a stockpile that we can make available to the community, unfortunately. But your emergency services providers might be able to assist you in that area. And finally, I would just like to say, Remy, thank you for what you and your group are doing, but please, please, please encourage your young people to stay at home. I still see on a daily basis groups of young people gathering at car washes, collectively gathering at stores that dispense, food, liquor, and candy, apparently, which is an oxymoron to me, but that's another conversation. And also young people just milling about together. Whatever you can do, all of us encourage our young people to stay in, because they are not exempt from this illness. Even babies are being impacted. So let's just, stay focused, stay confident that this too will pass. Thank you, Evan.
Thank you, Deborah. We're now going to move on to Regina Greer, who for those of you who were with us last week, got to hear from. She's going to provide an update on some of the efforts going on across the region and provide some insight on how this group connects to the regional response effort, as well as some updates on United Way activities. So Regina, the floor is yours.
Thanks, Evan. Good morning, everyone. I will be really brief for, I know you've got still a lot to cover, but the way that this group now connects, so now that there's a COAD for the community, for our community, there are a couple of other things that Evan and others have been quickly linked to for a regional response. One is the St. Louis Area Regional Coalition of COAD. So you are not the only COAD in the region. You're joining about 6 others that are functioning, whether it's St. Charles, St. Louis City County, Jefferson, Franklin. Those counties have been working together, and our next step as well is looking from St. Clair County also to delving in a little bit deeper to what's happening in Madison County as well. So we have to also look at our neighbors in Madison and see what we can do to move that along. There is a form table with a 5-county focus jurisdiction called the Regional Response Roundtable. That's being led by Jason Purnell out of WashU. Some of you may be familiar with Jason's work for the sake of all. But Jason and a number of community partners, including United Way, Catholic Charities, Sal Army, just a number of leaders for the region have come together to talk about what a unified response looks like to be sure that we're covering all components. So St. Clair County and Madison are included in that viewpoint. And as we look to continue to go deeper in certain areas, there's a huge focus coming out on seniors, homebound, and those who are disabled. So we'll be happy to report out more about where that work is going so that we can look at that. These same tables and of course United Way have been working with the St. Louis Community Foundation. There have been 2 rounds of emergency grants already coming out of that group. So that group has raised a little over $2 million and started giving out grants right away to partners who are working and specifically giving priority to COAD organizations. So those who are equipped to do mass response. And so that's why it was important to also get this COAD off the ground for the greater East St. Louis community. So that work will continue. And I'll keep you abreast of their future funding priorities. But the next step there is also to look at homebound seniors and those who are disabled and how we're going to support in the long term. And then the last thing I will say from a United Way perspective, this week we are releasing $205,000 in our phase 1 emergency response. We gave these grants out to United Way funded agencies who are poised and experienced at doing disaster crisis response already. And so happy to report we made sure that the application had a keen eye on serving both Missouri and Illinois. And some of the numbers, we gave out 11 grants, so those are moving forward. And 5 of those, 7 of those are squarely in the footprint between the bi-state area, and 5 of those 7 are doing work or will be doing work in St. Clair County. So we've been very intentional, making sure that we're spreading the dollars where they need to be. You'll be hearing from some of our funded agencies and the updates that are coming next, but we're again being very intentional about where those dollars are going and being sure that we're strengthening all communities where there's a need. So, okay, Evan, that's
Thank you, Regina. And we'll get more information out about both existing funded and future funding opportunities. Just as an echo to what Regina said, having our COAD organized and us figuring out in our teams who can do what is going to be very helpful with other opportunities that are down the pipe. So getting organized and getting it elevated to other channels for resources is going to be really important. Again, there's lots of spaces, lots of different things that we could be giving updates on. We're going to try to be, concise in the updates we give and know that we may not be a clearinghouse for everything. Liz put in the chat box reference to IDPH's website. I have a graph, a slide on it as well. Most of you probably already are familiar with what's available. I do want to point out, and this speaks to what Liz was saying earlier about the impact of COVID-19 in Black communities, is zip code data is now accessible on IDPH's website. And, as Liz said, the reality of this is communities that have been systematically oppressed through historical and current racist policies are those who are most vulnerable and at risk of this condition. The numbers are very, very dire in the Chicago area. It could be foretelling, very much so, what we are experiencing, what we are and will experience in our footprint. There are some pieces of that is unchangeable at the moment because these inequities are not new. They are longstanding, they are pervasive. There are actions that we are hoping to take to make sure that those, obviously this is one step, who are most vulnerable at risk due to historical and current inequities are getting the resources they need. But want to echo something that was referenced in last call, is that this COAD is not just designed to set for the current response, but for the recovery. And recovery should include what are the systems that need to be shifted so we do not find ourselves in the inequitable conditions we have today. So just I want to raise that, call it out for what it is, and not, it's just important to name it. With us on the line is Marilyn Green from IDPH, and I just wanted to give her an opportunity to share anything about these resources. And so, Marilyn, if you want to unmute your phone, you can share now. Oh, Marilyn, I don't know if you have audio. I'm not seeing your audio. So Marilyn, if there's anything you want me to relay, please type it in your chat box. I can see that your audio is not working here. But thank you for being with us. Please all go to that site if you haven't. So moving on, as we got about 10 minutes left, that I wanted to try to keep you all to an hour. I want to reiterate again, if you have not done so already, please fill out the form. Go to tinyurl.com/COAD 2020. Again, that's tiny, U as an umbrella, RL.com/COAD 2020. We have currently, as you see presented, 5 teams set up. A few things about all of this is that these are very interconnected in the nature of how they will function. These are meant to just organize us for specific activities. And again, they're meant to build off of what's already existing. It's how are we drawing connections? How are we identifying where the gaps are? And how are we building the muscle and the connectivity to endure whatever length of time this pandemic will be with us. So you'll see we have teams that are looking at the distribution of physical bulk goods that includes food and other products that requires variety of different tactics. The other piece is around the distribution of financial resources. All of these things, again, the families we interact with will probably need many of these things. So we're not going to isolate them overly too much, but we have emotional and spiritual care. The child care education and enrichment team, we've grouped that together from a long-term view, but we want to acknowledge that there are 2 efforts already underway that really is what this team is. Children's Home and Aid is taking a lead role in coordinating the child care for essential workers, as well as just helping child care programs navigate how they are going to sustain in the long haul. And on the education and enrichment side, there is an existing coalition called the East St. Louis Youth Development Alliance that's been already having a weekly call on Wednesdays at 10 a.m. And we're going to get that information out in a follow-up email very shortly. So what we're hoping to do, once folks fill out that form, and if another option is enter in the chat box which one you would like to sign up for, we are, by the end of this week, going to get out the emails of when these meetings are and what the agendas are going to be. We're not going to have a lot of flexibility to send out doodle polls for availability. We're just going to kind of ask people if they can reprioritize, carve out for when these meetings are. We'll adjust as we need to. Want to acknowledge also that, 80 people on this call, divided up by these numbers, it's a lot for any one team, likely. It's really important that folks acknowledge what their role and capacity could be to anything. We are looking for people to step up and take on a lead for coordination role to be a point for any of these teams. We know that some folks just might be there because your site could be a hub, right? So the clearer we can be on what folks have to offer, and really look at, we are all one team right now. This is not about what organization is going to get any spotlight or this or that. I don't think anyone is thinking in that lens, but I know sometimes that's a natural impulse. We really just need to go, what does current capacity look like, right? What can we do with the players we need? So we are going to be examining that in those first meetings and just try and divide up roles and responsibility based on need. capacity, and the available resources. So big takeaway again, fill out the form. You will be getting a follow-up correspondence. I'm just looking at my notes to see if I left anything off on that. Again, meant to build off of what exists, not replace. This is where we are going to move into action. And to echo, like, already there's so much to work from. And so that's going to both make it easier in some respects, and then just also making sure we can navigate where those gaps are. So if you all have questions, put them in the chat box. Next up, you'll see also in the survey form I left off is the teams are one thing. There's a lot of stuff that happens to support the teams that we run to leverage the talent of the people on this call. We, you know, in some spaces, if your role could be just helping to facilitate a meeting, that might be a skill that we need, helping us with project management and other things. This was a sample list. Don't think of it as the only thing we may need. We may not know what we need yet. So if you have a talent and the time to offer at this time, you know, we need you on off the bench and in the field. So that is also in the survey form. Again, you can also drop it in the chat box if that's what you is easier for you. And again, those who are on the phone, you may email eastsidealign@gmail.com. I'm guessing the people on the phone have gotten an email from someone, and you can track us down to make sure we get you plugged in. So that is our ask, because we want to go from this call into action. I know folks were eager for that last week. We unfortunately knew that it takes a little bit of time to get all the operations up and running. It's going to be bumpy. It's going to be messy. We're not in a normal scenario. And so I just ask all of us to not withhold the ideas and also operate with an abundance of grace, because we're trying to do what we can in a new terrain for all of us. There's going to be mistakes, hopefully not many, and they're not going to be with ill intent, right? So to the degree folks can help, this is what we are in need of. So last shout out, tinyurl /COAD 2020, and we will get moving on these next steps. We have 5 minutes till the hour. The one other thing we really want to impress upon is, as we're in this work, it is very easy to look toward the direness of the situation, the realities of the situation, and we want to be spotlighting the good. So we are going to want to create space in these calls and in our team meetings to have some sharing out of positive things that are happening. So we are also asking folks to email us the stories at eastsidealign@gmail.com. We want to be highlighting it. We're seeing it on Facebook. We're hearing it in the calls. You know, you may not think what anyone's doing is like, oh, I'm just doing what I'm supposed to be doing. We want to uplift it. This is the fuel that's going to sustain us throughout. So we are going to create space in these calls, but we want to uplift the power of what is happening. So that's going to be coming. And I just have a quote to kind of end us with, to acknowledge that this is a difficult time. That's without question. But grief and hope can coexist. Hope locates itself in the premises that we don't know what will happen, and that in the spaciousness of uncertainty is room to act. All of you on this call have been responding. You have been acting in hope. You've been acting in faith and in deep passion. And we're also feeling a lot of weight and a lot of heaviness of what we're seeing, what we're experiencing in the community, in our personal lives, and just know that those things coexist. And there's great possibility when you see 82 people on this call, right? Just think about what we can do, help guide us in facilitating all of our pieces together. And I think, you know, we will make some impact, if not a great impact, both now and long term. So it is 10:57, and this may be the only time I could say within the last year, I got someone off of a call before the meeting, before the hour ended. We know time is critical right now. So we're gonna close. We're not gonna open the channel for big forum right now, but if we can fill out the form and we'll resume next week, and just be on the lookout for emails. Information is gonna be flowing. So thank you all so much. And we will be in touch very soon. Thank you.
Thank you, Evan.
Thank you.